live. All right, it's preparing. All right, it looks like we're live.
I would like to call the July 8th, 2020 Henrietta Town Board meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley.
Here.
Councilmember Stafford.
Here.
Councilmember Safranek.
You're muted.
Here. Councilmember Bolsner.
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin tonight with a silent prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hear the video feed lag, right? I'd like to apologize for the late state due to a wrinkle thrown in last night at the planning board. We had to have a attorney-client privilege discussion regarding the points of law surrounding one of our resolutions. I'm sure those in the audience can guess which one it was. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Moved.
Mr. Supervisor, fellow town board members, I'd like to make a motion to approve the June 8th, 2020 town board workshop minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley.
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow town board members, I'd like to make a motion to approve the June 10th, 2020 town board minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
I hit the wrong button. Councilmember Barley.
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford.
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek.
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. So I will note that residents are participating virtually, and if you wish to speak during tonight's meeting, you can do so through one of two means. If you're using Zoom on your computer or with an app, select the raise hand control, or if you're called into Zoom, press *9. When it is your turn to speak, the meeting host will enable you to talk. If you're watching this meeting on YouTube, Facebook, and wish to respond, please visit henrietta.org/wishyouwerehere for detailed instructions on how to connect on Zoom. For the deaf or hard of hearing, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. For everyone else, please reserve the Q&A for the deaf and hard of hearing only. Under public presentations, miscellaneous communications, we have no public presentations tonight, but for those who are unaware, roughly a week ago, there was an incident where a Monroe County Sheriff was responding to a traffic stop, and inside the car was a felon who got out and attacked the officer, hit him, beat him fairly hard. He was in the hospital. So I would just like to send my thoughts and prayers to that officer. Hope that he's recovering okay. Very appreciative of all the work the Monroe County Sheriff does for this town, as well as the county as a whole, and appreciate the work and essentially putting themselves on the line for our safety. So just wanted to mention that. For some reason, it did not get picked up by the local news. I don't know if it's because of all the national news. I don't know why, but it really has not been covered. And,
Wow.
like I said, it's unfortunate. To my knowledge, he's recovering. I haven't spoken to the captain in a few days, so I haven't gotten the latest details. But
Thanks, Steve, for letting us know. I was unaware of that. So.
Well, he has our prayers.
can I get the first resolution?
Supervisor Schultz, I have resolution 15-169, 2020 to authorize bills payable for June 25th, 2020 through today.
Second, and thank you, Lisa, for trading places with me.
Not a problem, it all worked out.
I did see her here today and it didn't click.
I had a lot of people going, "You're not Millie."
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor and fellow town board members, I have resolution 15-170, 2020 to approve the conveyance of land to the town as connection with the open space incentive for the development of Forest View subdivision.
Second. So before we get in on the discussion pertaining to the resolution itself, I just wanted to bring up a couple points of order. I'm going to ask the town attorney to make it clear what our jurisdiction is and what our decision is regarding this particular resolution. Don?
Sure. So this application, the overall application for the development of Forest View is largely being handled by the planning board as a subdivision application. The planning board took lead agency for seeker. They were responsible for addressing any environmental concerns. They issued a negative declaration last night, is my understanding, which means they completed seeker and concluded that there were no material adverse environmental impacts. They also issued preliminary subdivision approval, meaning they approved the preliminary version of the project, but they conditioned that on us taking care of this action before the town board here tonight. So the town board hasn't done seeker, won't be doing subdivision review. That's not within the town board's jurisdiction here, it's within the planning board's jurisdiction. The town board has very limited jurisdiction in this case. The reason why the town board has any jurisdiction at all is because the developer is proposing to donate land to the town. The developer is proposing to donate about 28 acres, I believe, of land, 28.63 as parklands of the town. So the town board, because of that, mainly, that has its job tonight here is limited only to considering whether it should accept that open space and whether it otherwise approves of the other conservation easements placed over the lands there. Doesn't have jurisdiction over the density, doesn't have jurisdiction over the subdivision, doesn't have jurisdiction over seeker. It only has, its only consideration is the lands that are being conserved, essentially. So I just wanted to make it clear that, again, the scope here before the board is very limited. It's just to consider whether the town's essentially going to take this park, this land as a town park or not.
Thank you. You know, we know this development is a hot subject. It's there's a lot of people very invested in opposing it. Some for the development itself. The majority seem to be more opposed to the developer than the development. In terms of the Open space incentive option and what's being covered. I will note that of the lands, 50.4 acres are to be retained as a private land with a agricultural conservation easement on it. This is precisely what we called for in the farmland protection plan that spanned the previous administration and this administration. It was approved in my first year in office. And does exactly that. And it's private land, so there is no ownership question. The only thing is we would have to approve who the grantee is, and we have a list of approved grantees. So if they choose one of them, they're fine. Now, one of the things that we have done, because one of the questions that often comes up on any of these things with the agricultural, or excuse me, the conservation easements is, well, what happens if 20 years down the road, another town board decides to allow development in that conservation easement? So one of the things that under this administration and this board has been doing is when these come up, we actually are requiring two grantees. So one is the town, and then one is a conservation organization. Now, because it's going to be an agricultural easement, I have reached out to the Monroe County Ag and Markets. I don't know if that's exactly their name, but as to whether they would be a grantee. And what that means is, what a grantee on an easement means is anytime someone wants to do something that's questionable within the rules, they go to that grantee and they have to get permission in order to do it. And so in this case, for somebody to do anything other than agricultural use or obviously just empty, vacant, open land, which is always an option, they would have to get approval, not just from the town board, but also from the department that oversees agriculture and is working diligently to preserve farms and preserve local farms. So to me, that seemed like a perfect fit. And if they're willing to do it, that's who I want to see named as an additional grantee. If they're not willing to do it, I would probably look to the Genesee Land Trust, because again, their mission in life is to preserve open space and to preserve farmland. Then in addition, there are 3 private open spaces. Now, again, originally these were proposed to be put forth to the town as what are commonly referred to as green belts. I am not a fan of those style of green belts. They're tough to maintain. They're tough to get access to. They cause problems with residences all the time. And so what I asked the developer to do is instead to make those part of private property. So that means that in some areas, the new lots are going to be extended to cover them. In the one area, what we did is because something we passed a year ago as part of the comprehensive land use update plan was buffering between existing properties and any new development going in. Excuse me. So this development has that in there. And so in a lot of cases, the existing property owners want to control what's in that buffer. So we asked the developer to first offer those buffer spaces to the existing property owners to see if they wanted to add it to their property. If they did, it's theirs at no cost. They will get it added. Now, of course, there are ramifications to that. You have more acreage, you're going to pay a bit more in taxes. It's not a significant amount, but if someone's on a fixed income, they're obviously going to want to think twice about doing that. But what that means then is they're in control of that portion of land. There is still a conservation easement on it, so there can't be physical structures there, but they could decide what trees to plant there, if any. They could decide that it's all mowed grass. They could decide that it's flower beds, a vegetable garden. They could let it grow wild. They have the choice because that buffer is on their property. They would have full control of it. If any of them decide not to do it, then what we've required the developer to do is just expand the new lots to include those area, so then the new people moving in would have those same options. But again, they could not, in that conservation area, they could not put a shed or a garage or a swimming pool. You know, could they put a picnic table and lawn chairs out there? Of course, because those aren't structures, but they would not be able to put structures out there. The third area is a proposed park area. It's 28.63 acres. It would be transferred to the town of Henrietta for use as town parklands. That's going to be the primary of the discussion. You know, again, on the other ones, it's going to be who controls those easements. It's going to, one grantee is, in all cases, is going to be the town, and the other grantee, another organization who we've approved, is the Henrietta Foundation. They work on, again, preserving open spaces and trails and parks. They're the ones who helped create Lookup Park. They're the ones who oversee the Genesee Valley Trail. So again, that's who we're looking at for grantees. For park area, there would be no grantees. It would be town parkland. Now, the way we have this worded is that it expressly would be transferred to us for parkland. So the instant we approve it, it comes under parkland alienation. The instant it becomes ours under this approval. And what that means is once created as parkland, we cannot use it for anything other than parkland without getting approval from the New York State legislature. And it goes through the New York State park system, and it's not easy to do. So again, that's an added level of protection that there would not be development there. As far as, does that mean we immediately have to start developing a park? No, it does not. There is absolutely no timetable. And to give an example of that, Martin Road Park, when it was donated, spanned both sides of the street. And I don't know how long ago it was. It's quite some time. Only the north side has ever been developed. We have some plans for the south side, but we've never executed on them, and that's largely from a financial standpoint. So again, this would not get developed until we had funds for it. You know, could we apply for state aid to municipalities or other stuff to do that? We could. We have a little bit of funds in our park and rec capital improvement funds. But to be blunt, it's, especially with COVID, it's going to be some time before that park would ever get developed. You know, one of the things that we've talked about is if there are concerns. So there was one of the things that's been brought up is the question of there being the fact that the entrance to the park is off a residential side street. I will note that that is true for at least half, maybe the majority of our town parks. Breeze Park, you have to take 2 residential side streets to get to it. Kenwick Park, 1. Andrews Park, 2. And the one I can never remember that Craig always reminds me. What is it? Bell Manor. So, you know, there's a number of these parks around town that are off of residential side streets. The key is that those parks are not the major parks like Tinker Park or Veterans Memorial Park. They are what I'll call more like neighborhood or community parks, you know, and that's what we're envisioning here, is that this is a, you know, so like the playground there wouldn't be big. It would be more like the size of the one you have at Martin Road Park or at Breeze Park, nothing like what you have at Veterans Memorial. You know, there was a question about whether we do a cabin or pavilion. There's some people who believe that the cabin would be too much traffic. So one of the things we've talked about is that we're probably going to put forth a amendment to this resolution to put some stipulations on the creation of the park if we decide to accept it, so that there would be, you know, there cannot be adverse material adverse impact on traffic, either to the immediate neighborhood or to Ward Hill itself. And so it's essentially a higher standard that you have to meet versus the normal seeker. And it would be up to us to determine it. You know, on the traffic on Ward Hill is actually the county's, it's a county road, it's the county who makes those determinations on the traffic there. So again, it would give us the ability to make sure, you know, so some people, like I said, believe that a cabin, because of rental and people coming out, might not be appropriate for that park. If that's the case, then we don't put a cabin park there. And then the second thing we were talking about, we've been talking about doing this anyways, but one of the things, since this is going to be sometime down the road and none of us may still be serving at the time it finally gets built, we want to actually have it stipulations in there so that they have to be followed in the years ahead, is that in order to, as part of the design of that park, there would be a committee created from, you know, residents from that area, as well as town staff, and they would work on the design of the park so that the park would not have a negative impact on the surrounding area. There was some talk about, you know, these homes are geared towards seniors. Well, a lot of seniors are grandparents. And so having a playground, right, they may not have the stuff at their house. So having a playground out their backyard, not just for this area, but for the other developments around there, is a nice addition. There are no parks with playgrounds in the southeast quadrant. And this is, which is why when this opportunity came up, I was excited about the park aspect of it. I wasn't excited about the controversial nature of the whole development as a whole. But the one thing that I was excited about was the park itself, the potential to have a park there, because I'd actually been looking in the southeast quadrant where we could potentially do a park for just that reason. And there wasn't a lot of opportunity, especially from the capital expenditure standpoint. So the ability to get one donated and even to have some of the infrastructure necessary for that park to be constructed at the developer's expense instead of at the taxpayer's expense was of great interest to me. So the one other thing I will add is that if we decide not to take the park, it does not kill the project, contrary to some belief. What would happen then is they would come back and have to make a change in the ownership and management, so they could, again, for instance, add that land to the Larkin farm, so that he farms it. They could go out to the Genesee Land Trust and have the Genesee Land Trust take the land over, and they typically keep it, what most people think of as forever wild. You know, and by the way, that is one option in the town park, is to create they're either typically referred to a nature park or conservancy park, where you basically have trails, but you know, there's no manicured lawns, there's none of that. And so, like I said, what defines the park, what we decide to create as the park, again, our thoughts as a board is that we would do that with a committee, with the local residents, and go from there. So with all that preamble leading up to it, let's get into this discussion about the resolution. Comments from the board?
Should we read the resolution in its entirety?
That's up to you.
Well, there's been some added.
Well, we haven't added that yet. We would have to, if she wants to try to read it with that added in, or we can just read it as is and then make a motion to amend.
I would suggest moving it as written, and then we can add it.
Read it as written and then make an amendment.
Okay.
You don't miss, our practice is not to read the resolutions.
Right. What? Yeah, so basically, I mean, just in a nutshell, what the resolution says, it dictates those three areas, which I already read to you, the agricultural, private open space, and the park area. And it then talks about how, with respect to the land offering, how it meets each of the requirements in the open space and incentive option. And then it basically, you know, if we decide to take the town park, well, first off, it says that we approve the ownership and management. And again, the only real ownership and management that's up for question is the parkland. The other two, the people who own the land. There's no question about that. The only time that comes into an issue is if you have communal property. Is there an HOA created? In other words, there has to be some means for that, those property taxes to be paid. And if it's not going to become municipal property, there has to be a means for those property taxes to be paid and the property be maintained. There's actually none of that in this if we take the parkland, because all the other conservation easements are private properties. The people who own the land own the land. The people who own the land must maintain their land per code. And because then the only remaining, the parkland would be municipal, we would be the ownership and we would be the ones doing it. And then the last resolved is that if we decide to take the land to create the parkland, it's essentially that we approve the transfer of that open space with the designated amenities to the town as town parklands. So that's what the resolution says without reading it in its gory legalese detail.
Billy, can I suggest that if you're going to move the resolution, that you move it with some conditions, and I can read those conditions now if you want.
I think maybe it would be best to have the discussion first and then move the resolution.
Fair enough.
Okay.
And just so you guys are aware, I do have a resident with a hand raised when you're ready for that.
Okay. Is there any board members who wish to make comments before we hear from the residents? So I would just like to at least have a little bit of a discussion in terms of, you know, so Lisa, for instance, I'm going to put you on the spot in terms of your worries about the traffic potentially generated from a cabin. You could just talk to that.
It's been an issue with me all along, because I know when they did the traffic study originally and they came to us with the traffic study, I mentioned to them, well, if you're going to put a cabin back there, have you even looked at the traffic that a cabin's gonna create? And the wording to me was, well, it's not a big deal, it's only a temporary type situation. But I know in living in this town that every cabin is full every weekend. And I'm just thinking, if you're concerned with traffic on that road and now you've put a cabin in there, you've got 30 cars coming and going every Saturday, Sunday, and whatever during the week. You might have Girl Scout troops, Boy Scout troops, things in there. And I just think that's a lot of additional traffic on the road. And so that was a big concern of mine. And I just felt like the people that did the traffic study kind of breezed over it too quickly.
I will just point out that that traffic study would be part of the seeker for the park, not the seeker for the plan. So that's why they breezed over it, because it's not part of, it wasn't part of their seeker analysis or traffic analysis for that. So that would have come up when we did seeker for the park itself.
And the other thing, you know, I had mentioned, I just find it interesting to put a park in the middle of a community, which is going to go towards, I would think, more of the senior population, which I am part of. And, you know, and you said a playground, and I'm like thinking, why do seniors want a playground? And then the light bulb went off in my head. Well, I have 3 grandchildren, and I take them to playgrounds. But yeah, that was a concern of me, is how a park's going to come into the middle of a community and having a cabin and having restrooms, and, you know, what the traffic was going to be and all of those kind of things. And I did put a call into somebody today that is involved with the Lehigh Valley Trail and the maintenance of it, just to see what their thought process was on it, because I was concerned as to how they looked at the additional traffic. And I do know one of their thoughts were, well, there's always tons of cars on East Henrietta Road to access the Lehigh Valley Trail, so it might be nice to have an additional place to access the Lehigh Valley Trail, which I think is so underutilized in this community. But so my biggest issue is traffic.
Right.
As you know, I've brought up many issues with this project to begin with. Unfortunately, sitting here and after speaking to the attorney previously tonight and tonight, you know, it's really not our decision if the project goes forward or not on the actual building of the project. That's unfortunate. It's unfortunate last night that on the zoning board last night on the planning board that one of the issues I had was brought up after the vote was already decided. Thought it would have been better if the board brought it up, person on the board brought it up during the meeting. So with that said, you know, the project itself is out of our hands, but the land use, I think we would rather have control over more than just letting it go. So that's all I have to say right now.
As for me, I've had a problem with this project from the very start. I think it's going to change the character of that neighborhood from, you know, the 5-acre lots that we all thought would be there, and the clustering changes that dramatically. For me, it does. The open space, the park. As for the park, if it was going to be owned by anybody, I would like to see the town own it. I again think that does change that neighborhood, having a park there. And for those reasons, I won't vote for it. I wouldn't want to see it not pass, but I won't vote for the open space either. And that's, you know, there are a lot of reasons that I won't bore you with why I don't like the project, which isn't what we're voting on tonight. But as far as, you know, I just think it changes a lot of things over there. And I've been there, and I've ridden up and down that area, and for me, it's a big deal. Personally, I'm only one vote, but that's my vote.
I'm going to echo the other board members. I have serious concerns about this entire project that's not within our purview tonight, but I would like to go on the record to say that I do believe that this project profoundly changes the character of the neighborhood. There's no way that you can put in a massive suburban development into a rural community and have it not profoundly change the character of the neighborhood. I have traffic concerns as well. I believe that it is terrifying to drive on Ward Hill. It's even more terrifying to walk or bike on Ward Hill. But I feel that by taking possession of the park and developing trails that connect with the Lehigh Valley Trail, that is probably going to be one of the best ways that we can mitigate a bad situation as it is. I believe that, you know, we've heard from many, many members of the community, and I would just like to say to those members of the community that we've heard from over the past few months that you have really achieved a lot in terms of changing the entire nature of this development. Because of your voices, you have reduced the number of residences that will be going in there. So it's no longer duplexes, there will be single homes that are going in there. The drainage situation looks like it will be significantly improved. And you've helped the town to find creative ways to hold the developer accountable. I am disappointed in a lot of the things that I've heard regarding this particular developer. I don't know him personally, but it sounds that he has not inspired a great deal of trust from the community. And because of that lack of trust, it's cost a lot of time and money. And I hope that he will see this project as a way to change his perception within the community.
Thank you. Unless anyone objects, I'm gonna now open up to public comments. Why don't we start with the person who had their hand raised?
Jennifer, you should be on. Oh, let me try it again. Jennifer, are you muted on your end? There you go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is no hiding it. I'm completely against the project for all the reasons I have said. The traffic I invited people to come take a left and right out of that neighborhood. Adding a street directly across the street is going to make it 10 times worse. Adding a pavilion inside of there, having more traffic coming in and out of there. On top of all that, problems that we've had with the builder. I know that's not a decision right now. I hope that the town looks to change that in the future. Again, I feel like our voices haven't been heard all the way. I just hope, like I said, I hope things change in the future, and I hope you vote no to this. Thank you.
I will note that your voices have been heard, but sometimes you are asking for us to do things that are not legal. That's not in our purview or not. Again,
So I guess it depends on what attorney you ask that to. Again, disregard any other fact, the traffic issue, and the fact that it is going to completely change the character of the neighborhood. Having what's looking like, yes, you did get away from the duplexes, whatever they're called, but having those houses look like that are most likely all going to look the same, if I'm correct, is not going to fit into this neighborhood with 5-acre lots and the neighborhood directly across the street that I'm in. It's completely changing how it looks. It doesn't belong in rural Henrietta, and which is the reason why I moved out here in the first place.
Is your lot a 5-acre lot?
It is not.
Right, and it's on the other half of the farm that this one is being created on. So let's just be clear there that when the individual bought that farm, they were both in the same district, both following the same rules. There were, and so again, the northern part did get developed, and now
right.
The people in the northern part are saying, well, the southern part shouldn't be developed because it will change the neighborhood.
Yes, it will. I mean, it was zoned for 5-acre lots for a reason, and those people on Ward Hill had to get homes with 5-acre lots. They tried to fight it, and because they didn't have the money to, they couldn't.
Well, again, he didn't fight it. He followed, every time he tried to fight the zoning rules, we shut him down. But now he's following the zoning rules.
Okay.
And
all right.
If we don't,
I'm done. Thank you.
No problem. I'll just finish what I was saying. If we don't like those zoning rules, if we don't want to see the open space incentive program used to preserve farmland, then we need to get rid of it. But you can't just get rid of it in response to an application. It's there when he put in his application, so he can build to those rules. If we don't like that open space incentive program, then we can look to get rid of it. In addition, as the planning board attorney made note before, when the rural residential zones were created, it did include, when they added the stuff for section 278, they did allow its use in that area. So again, if we don't like that, we can look at passing a local law to get rid of it. But we can't just say, you know what, everybody else could use it, but we don't like you, Mr. Developer, so we're not going to let you use 278. That's not legal. And what would happen is, if we did that, we'd end up in court, we would lose, the development would still go forward, and taxpayers would be out a lot of money because we'd have to pay all those legal expenses. So I know you said that you talked to different attorneys, but every town attorney has, and we have multiples, I've not heard one yet who has come up with ways to say that he's not following the zoning laws. So, again, I get it that people don't want it. As a general rule, there's this mentality that my house is in town, so I don't want any more houses built. That's not the way it works.
That has nothing to do with it. More so than what the builder has done or hasn't done. It has to do with the safety for me of putting a street across the street, as well as.
So I guess my question is, why was your street allowed to go in?
Listen, I never even knew that this was even such a thing before I came to build in Henrietta. So, that's here nor there. And we're talking about, I've been here a long time now, so.
The decision for that
But
location.
my point is, do the petitions that the whole neighborhood gathered up together make a difference? All the petitions that were signed, whether online or in person?
It depends what you mean by make a difference.
Make a difference as to the traffic and the.
Let me finish answering that. If the question is whether people sign a petition and saying we don't want this, whether we can make that arbitrary decision because these people said no, can we deny them? No. What happens is that can be taken into account on the seeker basis from the traffics. And so again, when those petitions came in, what did the town do? The town commissioned a traffic study. Even though one was not required by law, one was not required by the governing authority of that road, which is Monroe County DOT. In fact, the Monroe County DOT said, why did you commission a traffic study? They were mad at us. And we said, because our residents wanted one. Our residents said, you know what, you've got to do an updated study. So we did.
Oh, can I add something there real quick? So I've been told that the county really has never turned down a traffic study. That's why I invited people to the traffic study means really nothing. When they did their traffic study in 94 and 96 of taking lefts and right out of the neighborhood, a lot of these houses weren't even here.
The last two counts for Ward Hill Road were 3 years ago, not 94.
Not taking left-hand turns and right-hand turns. That was 1994 and 1996.
So you're saying that there's stacks of cars sitting, making those turns today?
You know, what I'm saying is there's more than there was in 1994 or 96. If I go back to the planning board meeting from a few weeks ago, I could tell you what that year was, but that's 20 years ago.
If I might interject, I believe that we are all aware that throughout Henrietta, there are major road issues related to safety in a number of neighborhoods. And while I would like to be able to deny this particular project, that came under the purview of the planning board and the seeker resolution. I think that since they came with a negative declaration on the seeker, that our next step is to begin to advocate with the county that they make that Ward Hill Road area a safer area to drive, walk, and ride bicycles. And hopefully, you know, I know this sounds opposite, but hopefully with a newer development going in there, that will give the town and the community members a little bit more leverage with the county to say, you need to improve this area and do better in terms of traffic flow.
So in terms of, in that regards, I've already approached the county DOT about additional signage, you know, what can be done to better alert. But again, whereas I know anecdotally, a lot of people talk about the problems on that road. From a data standpoint, it's not backed up. There is not it's not a accident hotspot, right? Martin Road and West Henrietta Road is an example of one of those. My old intersection, Bailey Road and John Street, used to be one. East River Road has a number of them. That is not one of them. They don't see accidents at a higher rate there than they do elsewhere in the county. So I know everybody talks about that. And it's, again, the data does not currently back it up. That doesn't mean we can't do stuff to make it safer. We absolutely can, right? One of the things that I'm talking about with the county is on a number of these roads, I basically asking them if the town goes through the effort of obtaining the easements in order to put a shoulder/sidewalk on the road, would they be willing to do that? So I've approached them about that on a number of county roads, right? In addition, and again, COVID has changed all of this, but prior to COVID, there were some state funds, whether from the New York State DOT, multimodal, in order to get sidewalks built, right? And we were doing that on a county road. That's the East River Road sidewalk project. Again, another one of these country roads, very hilly, and that one sees a lot more traffic and a lot more pedestrians. So, you know, again, as we look at this, we are talking about a bunch of those roads and what we can do to improve them. Not saying that our roads can't be made safer, they absolutely can. But in terms of the traffic studies, and again, when we look at the way all these things are done, the county did not believe that there was an issue here. And they have a lot more experience in traffic than any of us here. And so I, as somebody who is a believer in science and engineering, have a hard time saying, you know what? I'm not going to believe the data. I just have a hard time doing that. That's not to say there aren't issues, sightline issues. I've got sightline issues in my driveway. I had to fight the county in order to get my driveway put in, even though it was across from an existing driveway. You know, and we still pay attention when we pull out because people come flying over the hill. But you know what? I've been there, I don't know how many years now, 7, 8 years, never seen an accident.
Okay, and if I can just interrupt here for a minute, I'm going to let you go here, but lastly, I just want to say, you know, clearly it's being approved for traffic. The character of the neighborhood is big. You know, a lot of people did move into this area to move into an area that doesn't have a pavilion or a park. The trail is fine the way it is. Connecting a trail would be great. I don't think we need to add any of that. The way these houses are going to look, I don't care what anybody says, it's going to directly change the character of the neighborhood. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else raising their hand?
There is not.
In the audience, 3 gentlemen in the audience, does anyone wish to speak? No. So, you know, again, in terms of the park, if we don't want a pavilion there, if we think that a pavilion's going to change the nature, so first off, even if we approve the parkland today, it does not mean there's a pavilion there. Again, that, as I've pointed out many times, the drawing on there was representative, not actual plans. We've never had any design plans for that. If people really think that a pavilion would change the nature of that area, then we don't put in a pavilion. If all that ends up being there is a playground and trails leading to the park or to the Lehigh Valley Trail, that's a decision we can make. We're not making it tonight. We will certainly record all this stuff and we can put it in a file so that when it comes up time to do that stuff, this information is reviewed prior to the design of that park. As we talked about, we are talking about adding some stipulations so that regarding the design of that park. But again, if that's the belief that adding a pavilion to the park will change the character of the neighborhood, and there's enough people who believe that, then we cannot add a pavilion. I just thought people like pavilions because if they're out there at the park and it starts to rain, it gives them somewhere to go under. People are that adamant against a pavilion, then we wouldn't build one. It's that simple. In terms of the park itself, as others have stated, and I agree, I like having that additional access to the Lehigh Valley Trail. There is an entrance right off of East Henrietta Road, although it does not have a very large parking lot. And so, you know, the idea that to be able to have a parking lot and it's a secondary parking lot, have the ability to hike back through the woods, through the trails that are already existing from the days of Dr. Burns, as well as anything that is new that has been added since the creation of that land there. Again, I think that is a benefit to the town. It's benefit to the people who use the trail. It's benefit to the people in the immediate area. And again, I do see a big benefit to having a playground of what I'll refer to as the neighborhood size located in the southeast quadrant, since there isn't one today. And so, but again, if when it comes time to design this park, if people think that a playground will change the character of the neighborhood in an adverse way, then we don't have to put in a playground. That's the whole point. That one will be completely under control of the town board. So, and again, the idea is one of the things that we're going to stipulate in this resolution. If we decide to pass it, we would have a stipulation that it's a community design team for the
I
park.
think that's a great idea to have residents input on this project.
And to be clear, we do that with most stuff. So we have that. We're having a resident panel for the local waterfront revitalization plan, which is talking about a bunch of trails and additions to parks all along the river. We've done that for when we did the comprehensive land use update. We had, I don't remember what it was, 4 or 5 members on that committee. So when we do these things, we almost always have residents involved because, again, we're trying to do what's best for the residents in the town.
If I can interject, I would also like to advocate that there are some designers for streets that are trained with an eye for safer streets, ones that are more pedestrian and bike friendly. And at the time when we are looking to develop the park, I think we should be looking to, I'd like to advocate that we have a designer in to also look at the Ward Hill area to make sure that that area can be at least a design developed with an eye for bike and pedestrian safety.
I will just note that's fine, but if the county does not want it, we can't force it.
We can always advocate.
We can. I'm just making it clear. I don't want people to have a false impression of what we can and can't do. We can advocate, we can ask, we can cajole, we could, I don't know if we'd be able to horse trade something, but the point is, ultimately, it is solely the county's decision.
And Millie, I agree with you. That's a great idea. I think that if we can advocate to the county to make it safer, it would definitely be better than what the alternative is.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I've been part of teams that have advocated for safer county roads in the past and from the community, and have been successful at encouraging the county to redevelop those roads in a way that was more bike and pedestrian safe.
And I will note that we actually have already done that to an extent. We created an active transportation plan that, and the county has been doing that when they redevelop a road, they do work at adding bike lanes and or wider lanes. And I've been active in that. As you may have heard, the county has approached us about the idea of getting additional land so that they can widen Calkins Road between Highland Drive and East Henrietta Road. They want to make it 5 lanes, and I think that would be a mistake. I think that's going in the wrong direction. If anything, I'd rather see it be 3 lanes, so 1 in each direction with a center turning lane and then bike lanes. But So that is one place where the town is currently butting heads with the county because they want to expand their county road. Now that one, we have some say in the matter because they need our land to do it. That doesn't mean they couldn't at some point try to take it via eminent domain. You know, again, we've done a bunch of that. We had funds left over in the Jefferson Road Transportation District. The way it works, those funds have to be spent within that transportation district. So we took a look at what could we do that would do the best to increase the safety for that area. And the determination was made putting sidewalks down Highland Drive. And so we've started that work. And again, it all has to get approved by the county, but the Director of Engineering and Planning, Chris Martin, and the Deputy Town Supervisor, Craig Eckert, have both been working with the county and myself to essentially work to make that happen. So we should be seeing improvements there. I will note that when the state has been redoing Jefferson Road, they've been putting in sidewalks in the areas where they haven't met. Why? Because of our active streets plan essentially requires them to do so. There has been also community feedback with regards to that bridge over the Jefferson Road Bridge over West Henrietta Road, that there were problems. It was basically ugly because there was all kinds of issues with grass growing up and weeds and stuff, and it was tough to maintain. We brought that to the New York State DOT. They incorporated that in their redesign. If you haven't been over the bridge lately, you'll notice that they totally redid the center area. They got rid of the place where the weeds were growing. They pushed the railings back so that there can actually be room for pedestrian or bike traffic over it. So they are taking those things into account when they do this stuff. So again, this is happening already. What you get into is a budgetary issue. Just as we have a lot of places where we want to build sidewalks and we only have so much money, they have a lot of places where they want to improve the roads and they only have so much money. And so, you know, again, one of the things I'm approaching them on, and I started to put the write-up together, although I haven't sent it yet, is on these roads that are the hilly, narrow country roads with no shoulders or sidewalks, that if I were to obtain the necessary easements, would the county pave essentially a 4-foot shoulder, 5-foot shoulder, whatever we can manage, so that there is now a shoulder where people can more safely walk or ride their bikes. It's not the best solution in terms of what I love. 2 large dedicated sidewalks, 1 on each side, absolutely. But again, unless we've got some money falling out of the sky into the town budget, that's not going to happen. So Ward Hill is absolutely on that list of roads where we are looking to do improvements. So
I know we're kind of off the subject here on the sidewalks and everything, but I know since day one, since you became supervisor, that was one of your big projects is to get more sidewalks. So
they're happening. They just aren't happening as fast as I would like. A lot of that has to do with the massive number of approvals you have to go through on these state and county roads to get them in, because that's largely where it's happening right now. So circling back to this particular project, any other discussion?
I just have a comment from Jennifer. She says that it's the homes also highly changing the characteristic.
Right. Unfortunately, at this particular meeting, we're not voting on the homes. Don, do we want to, could you read the amendment and I'll make a motion that we amend according to your stipulations?
Yeah, so for your consideration to amend the resolution, to add the following at the end of the written resolution. Resolve that as a condition of this approval, prior to development or expansion of parklands, the town shall engage in a study and analysis to ensure that proposed amended
Could you hold on a second, Don? Becky, can you hear him okay? Because his mic seems far away.
I can't hear him very well. He doesn't like to be very close to the microphone. It's an attorney thing.
I just got him to fix that. Okay, go ahead.
How about now? Is that better?
That's better, Don. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was afraid of the feedback.
No problem.
Okay, so I'll start over. So to add at the end of the proposed written resolution, the following. Resolve that as a condition of this approval, prior to development or expansion of the parklands, 1, the town shall engage in a study and analysis to ensure that proposed amenities in the parklands do not cause material adverse traffic issues in the immediate neighborhood and/or on Ward Hill Road. And 2, the town will create an advisory committee comprising residents and town employees and officials to assist with the design of the parklands.
So I make a motion that we amend the current resolution to include the stipulations as drafted by our town attorney.
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing no discussion on the amendment, please call the roll for the amendment.
Councilmember Barley,
Nay.
Councilmember Stafford,
Abstain.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
No, this is just whether we're going to change the resolution, you're not voting on the resolution itself.
This is voting on whether we're going to change the resolution.
Whether we're going to add those two clause stipulations to the
Aye.
resolution.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Okay, so now we are discussing the resolution as just amended. So basically, it's as it was before, but it now includes those two stipulations that we have to make sure that whatever we do does not have a material adverse impact on traffic, and 2, that we have that we form a advisory committee comprised of residents and town staff in order to do the design work. Any other discussion on the resolution itself?
I would just like to say that I think that it's important that the town be able to have say over this parkland. And I have concerns that if we deny the application as stands, that the development will go forward regardless of whether we take ownership of that parkland or not. So it's my preference that we be able to have say and make sure that we can continue to incorporate the needs and desires of the community in that.
I will second that opinion.
Because of the issues that I've had, I'll abstain also on this one. So, going to vote.
I'm sorry, what did you?
Because the issues I have with the project itself that on the plan, that I'm going to abstain.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll on the resolution as amended. Oh. The original resolution?
No, the amended resolution.
We did, and we had a roll and voted that.
No, not the amendment of it. You've amended the resolution. Someone moved and seconded the amended resolution.
Yes. Well, okay, the way we've always done this is that, so Millie put forth the original resolution and I seconded it. We just voted to amend it, and now we would be voting on the amended resolution.
Just to be clear, because it's so up in the air, I would just move the amended resolution.
I don't believe that's following Robert's Rules of Order, but I will do it anyways. That's not how we've conducted this town board the entire time I've been town supervisor. But to make you happy, Millie, would you put forth the amended resolution?
All right, I put forth the amended resolution 15-170, 2020 to approve the conveyance of land to the town as connection with the open space incentive for the development of Forest View subdivision.
Second.
So can I ask another question or?
Sure.
two?
Nope, we're still on discussion about that.
Okay, so Don, if we turn this down, what happens?
Well, it's not, so first of all, it's not totally up to the town what happens. You know, the developer is gonna have to decide what they do next, but, you know, what's probably going to happen, if I had to guess, is the developer is gonna say, how do you want this open space arranged, town? And present a new open space proposal, which you'll have to consider again.
So I think what a lot of people think is if we turn this down, we're turning down the project. They don't understand that we don't have the ability to do that. We're simply talking about the parkland right now.
Right, you might have the developer come back and say, okay, we'll turn this parkland into privately owned open space.
If it was taken from parkland, okay, if we didn't take it and we gave it back to the developer, does he have the ability to develop it in a different way?
No, this is gonna be undeveloped land either way. That's part of the open space incentive option, is it reserves this land to be undeveloped.
I will make one change then. Could he, in theory, start all over again with a totally different open space incentive plan layout, section 278? He could.
Yep, you could restart the whole thing if you
Right.
wanted to.
But
Yeah.
otherwise, yes, what would happen is, again, the most likely scenario is he would just come back with a different plan. And if all of them are privately owned and there is no ownership question, basically what would happen is he would ask us, who do you want to own the easements? And we'd have to answer, right? We couldn't say, no, we don't want anyone to have it. You can't build. That's not legal. So, you know, we already know who a list of approved conservation easement holders are. So they would just have to get, whether it's the Henrietta Foundation, the Genesee Land Trust, Monroe County Ag, you know, one of those type of organizations.
So my understanding, based on what you said, is if we choose to take this land tonight, we still have the option of asking one of those to take it at a later date from us. No.
If we accept it as parkland, well, we do have that option, but in order to do that, we have to go through the process called parkland alienation.
So that's when you go to the legislature?
That's when you go to the legislature.
Okay. And so I guess what we're looking at now is either we take ownership of it and control what the community wants to do with it, even though we're not saying that we're in agreement with everything else. But we're just saying that we take ownership and we can let the community help decide what to do with this, or we let somebody else take ownership and let them decide what to do with it. So we're basically choosing the best of.
So for instance, one of the things under a conservation easement that they could do is put motorbike trails. Someone could take private land and put all kinds of motorbike trails, dirt hills. They could have people riding motorbikes there all night long.
Right.
Well, not all night long because of noise violations, but all day long. That would be a legal use of that land, even though it is under a conservation easement, because as long as they don't build permanent structures, right, that's legal.
Okay.
So, you know, they could open it up for people to hunt. Obviously, they'd have to be more than the 150 feet away or whatever the hunting rules are with regards to that. But, you know, there's a bunch of different options that they could do as private land, still under a conservation easement.
Right. And if we take ownership, then we have the ability of controlling that to make it safer for our community.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll on the amended resolution.
Councilmember Barley,
Nay.
Councilmember Stafford,
Abstain.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Mike, you're up.
Mr. Supervisor, I have resolution number 15-171 2020. Establish extension number 169 Lehigh Park 2 to Henrietta Water District number 1.
Ron?
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion in the public forum?
There is not.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, I have resolution 15-172, 2020 to establish extension 221 of Lehigh Park 2 to the Henrietta Sewer District number 1.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 15-173, 2020 to authorize the supervisor to execute a proposal from BME Associates for the Veterans Memorial Park Culvert Project.
Seconded.
So I will note that this is the maximum amount. We are looking at ways to bring that cost down from a services standpoint, but as we have to have those detailed discussions between our engineering department and BME, we just put in for what the maximum would be. And this is again to create a culvert over the Red Creek just to the south of the senior center parking lot. So we have a second access into and out of Veterans Memorial Park on the Cabin Road. It would include both, 2-lane road as well as a pedestrian lane, so that it will also help come 4th of July for people getting into and out of the park who are handicap accessible, or excuse me, need handicap accessibility. Any questions?
Yeah, on that, will that require like approval from DEC or EPA?
It will.
That's over the creek.
It will. The one possibility we've discussed, and that's one of the things that we want BME to take a look at, because the creek is narrow there, we may actually be able to dig for the foundations far enough back behind the gabion baskets to where we're not disturbing the stream or the stream bed, in which case it would not require DEC. But the question is whether we have enough span to do that, and whether by doing that, basically as to whether that will work from an engineer design standpoint. I won't go into all the details as to the different engineering, but that would be the only reason basically, if we're going to disturb the stream or the stream bed, we would need DEC approvals.
Okay, thank you.
I will also note that the funds for this are coming out of the drainage budget, which is not, its funds are not subject to COVID, whereas stuff in the general fund, because of the loss of sales tax revenue, highway, library, and general funds are all affected by COVID. The drainage fund is not. Any other questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, I have resolution 15-174, 2020 to authorize funds for increased costs to the 2020 sanitary sewer and lateral repair project to install a sanitary sewer along Lehigh Station Road.
Seconded.
So this one's pretty self-explanatory. It brings the sewer out to, this is essentially phase 1. 50,000 of the $75,000 will be reimbursed from a community development block grant through Monroe County. Again, this is in this case, it's from sewer funds, which also are not subject or not prone to decreases due to COVID. Obviously we would have to cover that $50,000, but that fund has a significant surplus, so that will not be an issue. We're going to have to cover that money until the CDBG comes in, but again, that's not an issue with this particular fund. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members, I have resolution number 15-175, 2020 to authorize installation of a stop sign westbound on Planters Row at East River Road.
Second.
So that's the new road, huh?
Correct. That's the new one for what's it called? Howlett Acres. Thank you. Basically it's on the Monroe County DOT is doing it. It's at their cost, but because it's in order for it to be enforceable under traffic code, it has to be adopted as a resolution and included in our record. So this would allow the Monroe County sheriffs to ticket people who run that stop sign.
Nice looking road.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, I have resolution 15-176, 2020 to approve issuance of a building permit for the installation of a shed at 789 Erie Station Road pursuant to Article 10.
Second.
Any discussion? So we did receive the letter. They held a special meeting of the,
Steve, that's the next one for 480
Oh.
Pinnacle.
sorry. So this one we've had a letter for a while
From the historic.
from the Historic Site Committee. Yeah. I got the two of them mixed up. So this one was from June 24th. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz, I have resolution 15-177, 2020 to approve issuance of a building permit for the above ground pool at 480 Pinnacle Road pursuant to Article 10.
Second. So this is the one that they met last, had a special meeting.
Yeah.
And basically said that because the pool is behind the house and has no real impact, it's a sizable yard, has no real impact on the historic site.
I know they wish it was in right now.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Fellow board members, I have resolution 15-178, 2020 to authorize town hall summer hours.
Second.
So again, the idea is that we would close a bit early town hall on Friday to give staff the ability to catch up. We lost a lot of staff time when we basically had to be at half staff. In addition, as we are preparing to reopen town hall, the procedures that we're going to have to undergo are going to make it difficult for the departments that, basically have to bring individuals in and work with them, it's going to take away from some of their ability to get other work done. So we're kind of reserving 4 hours on Friday afternoon to get through that, some of that workload, especially in the clerk's and assessor's office, where we're going to want to have, when we get to this school tax collection, they're going to be hit. And the assessor gets hit because invariably when somebody then comes in and talks about their bill, if they should have received a star exemption or other exemption, they typically are immediately then sent over to the assessors to say, go fill that out so you can get your reduction qualified.
So they close about 1 o'clock each Friday.
That would be the plan, is that we would close at 1 o'clock on Friday instead of the normal 5 o'clock.
That's great.
But closed just to the public.
Just to the public,
Right.
the people would still be working,
Right.
but
Right.
and then in the event that there was somebody who that was the only possible time they could ever get in there, we would look at doing something by appointment only.
Our
But
staff is very good for that.
they are.
Yeah.
And then this would end August 28th, so that basically, because again, we know when we get to that school tax time, that people are going to need to be able to come in on
Right.
Friday afternoon.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, I have Resolution 15-179, 2020, to acknowledge a donation from Dr. Peter and Dr. Lauren Rosella for the Henrietta Public Library for adult events and classes.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Thank you very much for your generosity.
Agreed. Hearing no further comment, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz and fellow board members.
Spit it out, will you?
Hello. I have resolution number 15-180, 2020 to proclaim July 12th to 18th as Pride Week in Henrietta.
Second.
Any discussion?
I am glad that we are continuing our new tradition of acknowledging a safe town, safe place for all members of our community.
You're here.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Mr. Supervisor, I have resolution 181, 2020 to appoint Pamela Goodman as a recreation director.
Second.
Any discussion?
Congratulations, Pam.
Yeah, Pam.
Congratulations.
Look at that big smile.
Thank you, guys.
It was a long wait, wasn't it?
Well,
We're excited for
it's
you.
been good. Thank you.
Hearing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye.
Fellow board members, I have resolution 15-182, 2020 to hire personnel and make attached changes.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranek,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolzner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Our public is emptied out here. Is there still any public online to make any additional public comments?
I do have some public, but they don't have their hand raised.
Okay,
Oh. They don't want their hand raised?
they're listening.
Oh, okay.
They don't wish to make comments.
All right.
So a couple things under the committee miscellaneous reports I just want to discuss. I sent out to you guys, I just want to bring this up so we're prepared for it for next meeting. We're going to be looking at two resolutions for 101 Hollybrook Road and 128 Citation Drive. These are two properties that have had numerous code violations that have been outstanding for almost a year. We've gotten very little to no feedback from the residents, no movement to resolve. So code enforcement has asked us to invoke town code, and I can't remember what it is right now. There's a section of town code that basically it has to do with maintenance of property, that if a resident continues to be in violation and makes no move to correct it, that we can basically issue a notice to perform work to correct those violations. Included in that notice is a call for a public hearing that we give them. It has to be at least 30 days. We give them a time to complete their work by. If it's not completed by that work time, they are summoned to the town board. And then we basically hear from them. If they don't show up, we make a decision in absentia. And it's basically the decision as to whether we are going to send in town crews in order to do the cleanup. And then basically the cost of that cleanup would be billed to the landowner, the property owner. Typically what happens is if they're continue to be as absent as they were to get in this position, at the end of the year, it ends up being levied against their property.
Gotcha.
I will note that one of these two properties is already in default on their tax. So I don't know what's going to happen between now and then. So right now, and one of the things that we're going to have to make a decision on is not at this meeting, but at next meeting, we'll have to make a decision on whether we're going to go to the altered meeting schedule that we talked about last meeting, simply because right now I have the resolution written as if we were going to have them in here. It would, the deadline is Monday, September 7th, which is when we would have public hearings based on the way we were talking about splitting the meetings up. If we're not, and again, it's not a question of whether we make the decision forever. Right. My point is we would have to have that in place by September. Okay. And we do need about a 1 month lead time because special permits notices are sent out that far in advance. Okay. So basically at next meeting at the same time, prior to this, we will make a decision on whether we're going to go to the new meetings. If we're not, then I would just make it for the same thing, but for September 9th, which is when the public hearing would be. And we'll basically just adjust it according to what our decision is on the meetings. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up because none of us have ever gone through that before. What I will do is in this week, I'll send out, Becky went and pulled the public hearings, the resolutions and such. I don't think we had the notice of default, but that's actually spelled out in the code. So I've written up both the resolutions for these as well as the notice to the notices that we're required to send
to both the properties.
I sent one for each property. Yeah, you basically have to send it to the property owner at their record on file, and you also have to post it at the premises. Okay. And then again, they basically have 30 days. This has been done for a number of problem properties in the past. 50 Faircrest is one, the most recent. These two ones in particular, again, whereas we've had some problems with some other properties, what stands out for these two in particular is that we've here heard nothing from the owner. So at least on some of the others, the owners or occupants are making some progress, maybe not as fast as we would like, and we're working on that, but these ones have not responded at all.
Okay.
Are they occupied?
That's a good question. It is not obvious on the one. I'm not certain on the other. I can have that, we'll have that answer for you for next meeting. Bill Cashin would know that answer, or again, is to the best of his knowledge. There's a number of these problem properties that are not occupied. One of the things that we are going to look at, there is a property at 99. What is it? Citation? Tomahawk, 99 Tomahawk Drive, thank you. That's why I have a deputy town supervisor to remember these things that I forget. That basically, you know, it has a problem with the roof and it has a hole in the garage door. The inner door is locked, but the neighbors are starting to see more animals coming in and out. So we might be taking a look at a resolution, whether we're basically following, it wouldn't be this exact same thing. That one is going to be to go and get a warrant to inspect to see if the building is structurally sound. If not, our director of building and fire prevention may condemn it. But basically, to start that condemnation process, there's steps that you have to take. So we might see that next week or next meeting as well. You know, we've been working on a bunch of these. Some of it, to be honest, has been delayed because of COVID.
Yeah.
Some of this probably would have happened earlier in the spring, but I know people get frustrated when things don't change around them. You know, I often hear people say, "You didn't do a thing," and I say, "No, actually we did. And here's the long list of actions we've taken." The thing is, again, as you would want it if it was you,
Yeah.
property owners have rights, and so we have to follow the law. We have to observe all those rights. You know, some of those are New York State Constitution. In this case, a lot of them are U.S. Constitution, right? You have right to due process. You have a right to, you know, no illegal search and seizure, a whole bunch of rules in that regard. So again, I know it can be frustrating to the neighbors at the time it takes, but as I often point out, if it was your property, you want those protections there.
Right.
So.
And I know one of the problems is that some people do go into a short sale, and the bank turns down the short sale, so they turn it over to the bank waits 2 years. I mean, it's just, the banking process in New York State on a short sale or foreclosure is ridiculous. I know my daughter lived in Minnesota, and their foreclosure it's 3 months, you know, and it's done. But I mean, here you've seen a property, it'll sit for 2 years, 3 years, and by then it's just terrible. Yet the bank won't take the short sale because I don't know what they think they're going to get. You can't get, you know, blood out of a stone, I guess
Right.
is the saying. But it's unfortunate that New York State doesn't change that policy.
I work with the guy that had the house next to him. It was empty for 6 years.
Oh, yeah.
And falling apart, and finally somebody bought it.
Or somebody passes away in an estate and there's nobody to take over, so the estate doesn't take place. And it's just, I wish there was a shorter process.
Or they
Oh,
fight
it's-
over it.
And then by the time it closes, it's a mess because nobody's had the electric on and it's flooded and we've got mold and it's just.
I don't know what the banks are thinking, you know, that
They're not. They're.
Well, and some of it's also New York State needs to clean up its laws.
Yeah, they need to make their laws a little more amendable so that you can get things done and we don't have to live next to homes like that.
Harry Bronson and Patrick Gallivan, I hope you're listening. Okay, anything else from a committee or miscellaneous report?
I just, a couple things I want to report on is tomorrow we have the food link over at, which
So it's going to be, you'll just follow the signs. It's Bushman Cabin parking lot, but basically if you just come in at the rec center, follow the signs.
And the people.
We moved it there from the previous location. we were able to double up lanes in Minerva Campbell Way in the past because the rec center and library were closed. They both now have activity at them, so we can't do that. So we're going to essentially double up traffic after they go past the playground parking lot. So the cabin road will be closed during that time.
And one of the things that happened last month is we were there and we worked it. We had a lot of stuff left over. There were people that didn't show up. So if you sign up, guys, I mean, they're giving, the food is amazing. I was shocked on the stuff that people were getting. I mean, so please, if you signed up, it's worth your time. You're not just getting a box of cereal and 2 cans of tuna or something.
Right, and if you haven't signed up, call
Amazing.
211 and sign up.
Yeah, just,
Okay.
I mean, do it.
The other good thing
It's a
about this
great
location
program.
is it's right, one portion of Bushman Cabin is where the raft food cupboard is. So if we
Nice.
have leftover, now, again, last time we had more food than we were able to fit in their refrigerated storage. But we were able to, there were a number of seniors who were sitting at the pavilion and under the, they were socially distanced under the bocce court pavilion. And so they were very excited when we said, by the way, do you guys want any food?
Wow.
So,
Yeah, it was,
yeah,
the food they gave away was amazing.
It was.
So really, I mean, don't not come because you just come.
And if you can't make it tomorrow, there's several locations on different days. You just go online on the link and you can see where the locations are going to be around the county. The last thing I got to bring up was a reverse parade got canceled a couple Saturdays ago because of an anticipated storm that really didn't happen.
hey, Weatherman.
And so it's been rescheduled for July 17th at 6:30. That's another one you're supposed to register for and get a pass for.
So anybody who registered previously, you are automatically registered for the new one. If you didn't register previously and wish to come, register, it's free. We just are asking people to register. We're basically, especially at the time of the previous, when it was near the 4th of July and the fact that we were gonna have fireworks, we were afraid that we were gonna get a lot of outside town. That's still a potential because you can't fit as many spectators in this approach as we could on a normal parade. We wanted to make sure that the spots were available to folks outside. Doesn't mean folks from outside the town can't view, just find a friend in Henrietta and ride with them, so.
Right.
And should people that can't come that registered call and cancel so it opens up space for somebody else? Or how booked were you, Pam?
We weren't capping it.
Okay.
Some people have called, Lisa, but they don't really need to, because it's not capped.
We don't have an exact number of slots, it's,
I just wasn't sure if you were, in my mind, it was such an amazing thing that you would have been overbooked. So I wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Hey.
So thank you, Mike.
Okay,
That's why I left it, because I know it's your committee.
Mike.
He's the liaison to the Parks and Rec, so I left him. I just wanted to make sure. I'm just saying those were the 2 things I was going to mention. Anyone else? Millie?
I'd just like to say thank you to the rec department for holding the summer rec program for the kids in Henrietta, finding a way to be able to do that. I know that was challenging to be able to make that happen. But as a working mom with young kids, I really appreciate that. And I'm sure there's many other people in the town of Henrietta that also appreciate that.
Is he having fun, Millie?
Well, he was on a daddy-son camping trip.
Oh, okay.
So he's actually going to be starting tomorrow.
Oh, good.
So at next meeting, we'll expect a report.
And I would also like to say that the school district has shared a thought exchange, which is their way of collecting survey information. And it's in regards to the reopening of the schools in the fall. So anyone with an invested interest whether you have kids, whether you're working in the schools or whatever, I strongly recommend that you go on and participate in the thought exchange.
Great. Anyone else? Hearing none, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Hearing no objections, meeting adjourned.
thank you.
Hey, back.